Right now, on Disorder in the Court, 20 unbelievable moments of mayhem in the unlikeliest of places. From bipartisan fisticuffs and a supersized sucker punch to a courtroom free-for-all and a catfight on wheels. It's chaos where there should be calm. And it's all coming up next on Disorder in the Court. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Disorder in the Court. I'm Ashley Banfield. We live our lives under the presumption that order will prevail. When we're in supposedly secure locations like courthouses or government buildings or even city streets, we expect to be safe, and for the vast majority of the time we are. But as we'll see in this countdown, there are times when even the most orderly of places can be turned upside down with disorder. Elgin Ray Robinson is on trial in a Kansas courtroom. In June 2006, Robinson was arrested for killing his girlfriend, Chelsea Brooks. Robinson pled not guilty to the charges, and after a 10-day trial, he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. But before he's incarcerated, Robinson speaks to both the victim's family and his own.
So, no matter how bad everyone wants me to be guilty of this, I'm not. All right? Say what you want, cry all you want.
When you listen to this guy talk, you see this guy, he's probably better off in jail.
With Robinson's denials still ringing in the courtroom, the victim's mother rises to make a statement.
He is a predator, and every person he comes into contact with is his victim.
On sentencing day, it's always very emotional.
The human part of me says, I hope he never admits the truth because I don't think he deserves heaven. But God says,
enough is enough. Y'all don't know Elgin. Chelsea was a troubled child before he stood up and let's justify it. He tried to save Chelsea. Y'all don't know Elgin. You don't know it. You know
When you're dealing with a murder case, you're dealing with two families, both of whom are victims in very, very different ways. And it's always tragic.
Elgin Robinson's mother cannot take it anymore.
he stood up and let's justify it. He tried to save Chelsea. Y'all don't know Elgin. You don't know it. I don't give
There's her baby, just sentenced to life in prison.
Officers clear the courtroom, and Elgin Robinson is led away to serve a life sentence.
Her reaction was normal. What was not right was that she took out her frustrations on the decedent's family, because it was her son that caused the victim's family to suffer every single day of their lives.
Grand Prairie, Texas. 66-year-old Wayne Moore stops at a fast food restaurant after attending a Texas Rangers baseball game.
He's probably sneaking a burger on the way home, you know.
But while he's still perusing the menu, a violent stranger sucker punches Moore and robs him of his wallet and car keys.
McDonald's is like the last place you expect to see somebody getting clobbered and robbed.
I mean, what happened to the days we could just walk in and get a burger, for God's sakes?
He's not looking for trouble. It's not like he started a beef with the guy. He was just standing there in line.
Who would go into a fast food restaurant and sucker punch an old man?
The answer would come 1 week later in Waco, when a man entered a liquor store and did this to the 62-year-old female clerk. How did cops obtain a positive ID on the suspect? The perp dropped his wallet during the liquor store attack. Identified as Tony Wayne Swinney, he was arrested and, due to previous felony convictions, given life in prison.
We're all excited about the fact that hopefully our streets are safer right now because he's no longer among us.
On July 21st, 2008, former Bosnian Serb leader Radovan Karadzic is arrested in Belgrade after 12 years in hiding.
Radovan Karadzic was indicted for the massacre at Srebrenica in 1995 and the siege of Sarajevo, in which thousands were killed.
When Karadzic is transported to the Netherlands to be tried, thousands of people gather in Belgrade's central square to protest the arrest.
You might think that this is some of the victims' families, those that have died, but no. These are actually the former Serbian president's supporters. This is insane.
When police try to quell the protest, the crowd's outrage at their former leader's arrest turns violent.
These protesters don't back down. I mean, they're facing rubber bullets, they're facing tear gas canisters that are basically flaming. Protesters pick them up and throw them back at the police.
They're throwing everything, rocks, bottles, flares, God knows what.
And they're taunting them, and they're telling them to bring it on.
The police were clearly outnumbered, and they were doing their best, but it's a little difficult to contain the crowd that's throwing firebombs your way.
It's a scary situation, and I'm sure that they're thinking, we still have to maintain some type of control, and if it means that you might get hurt in the process, that's something you signed up for.
Riot police eventually subdue the unruly protesters and clear the streets. Coming up, a beatdown behind bars. Plus, an unlikely aggressor. And later, a battle of the sexes in Taiwan. When Disorder in the Court continues.
Attention men.
A new study shows that...
Coming in at number 17 on the countdown, a hostage drama that plays out live on TV. And wait until you see who landed the starring role. In Bangkok, the Thai parliament is in session. But at a security checkpoint outside the building, a man dressed in the robes of a Buddhist monk brandishes an AK-47, demanding an audience with the Prime Minister.
You just don't see a monk carrying an AK-47 every day.
And then the strangest thing happens. The police officer opens the door and lets in all the media.
With cameras rolling, the armed Buddhist corrals 20 government employees into a corner and recites a list of demands.
I have never seen anything like this before. You have cameras rolling, you have hostages, and they're so close to this monk, and that AK-47...
Unbeknownst to the monk, police disguised as reporters have slipped into the scrum and wait to make their move.
One would think that if a guy's carrying an AK-47, you run the other way. It's just amazing that we want to film it as opposed to stop it.
The bravery of the cameraman to get so close. Bravery or foolishness?
The hostage taker is arrested. And no one is hurt in the incident. In October 2007, 23-year-old Warner Fabian is arrested on weapons charges in Lawrence, Massachusetts. At the station, Fabian is placed in a holding cell.
A lot of prisoners were in holding cells. They've been sitting there for hours. They're in handcuffs. Some of these people are the dregs of society.
Also behind bars, 4 violent offenders detained after an altercation at, of all things, a baby shower.
I've never heard of 4 guys going to a baby shower. Maybe the father.
When his cellmates advance, Fabian lashes out with the only thing he has free. And before he knows it, he is under attack.
This poor guy, it's 4 against 1, is getting pummeled.
He kicks first. Not a bright move. If nobody's watching our monitor, they could kill him.
It's the reason why you have handcuffs on, because you want to make sure that they don't have an opportunity to use their hands. Guess what? They have an opportunity to use their feet.
And they're not even thinking about, okay, you haven't even been arraigned yet, and you're already taking on more charges.
Authorities break up the beatdown, and Warner Fabian is transferred to a solitary cell. His attackers are hit with added assault charges. It's 2008, and then Secretary of State Condi Rice is meeting with South Korean officials at the presidential palace in Seoul. Out in the streets, thousands of agitated protesters. But they're not enraged over U.S. foreign policy. They're up in arms because their government has lifted a ban on imports of American beef.
They automatically believed that because U.S. meat imports would come into the country, that they were going to get mad cow disease.
Condi Rice takes to the Korean airwaves in an attempt to calm the throngs.
I want to assure everyone that American beef is safe.
But the demonstrations continue, and riot police eventually enter the fray.
I love the woman with the spatula. She's got a cell phone in one hand and a spatula in the other, and she's having none of that American meat.
Using city buses, authorities erect a blockade around the presidential Blue House. But the impassioned protest won't back down.
These rioters put ropes around the buses and literally pulled them over so they could get into the presidential palace. That's unbelievable.
The protesters were against these policies. They were taking ropes, and with the sheer strength of a few dozen people being able to turn over police vans and cause some mass destruction.
Authorities eventually bring the meat mayhem under control.
People have been locked up. If one of their people had been wrongly imprisoned, I can understand them getting so violent. It's just amazing, that violence, because it's a political decision about meat.
British Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott is campaigning in Wales. But some Welsh farmers are displeased with his agricultural policies. And when Prescott makes his way through the crowd,
It's interesting to see the Deputy Prime Minister in his suit, and he's ready to be all prim and proper, and then bam! A left hook.
The Deputy Prime Minister should not be punching anybody.
Look, we all have moments. The difference is when you're an elected official, you don't have that second chance when you snap.
So you get a little bit of egg on your shoulder. Don't let your emotions get out of hand, or you will have egg on your face.
authorities arrest the egg thrower. John Prescott has since resigned as Deputy Prime Minister.
There's no place in an orderly society for throwing eggs or food at politicians or anyone else for that matter.
Coming up,
Off his property.
a suburban showdown with the press.
Get the off the property.
Plus, The world of politics isn't always civil. When Disorder in the Court continues. The suburbs invoke a sense of community and supposed safety. What happens when a perceived threat to that safety moves in next door? In California, sex offender Darren Kawamoto has returned home after spending 13 years in prison. His arrival sparks parental concern, community meetings, and media attention.
The recidivism rate of a child molester is approximately 98 to 99%. So when you hear that someone's in your community, you're very afraid.
A reporter and camera crew arrive outside Kawamoto's parents' home.
We're okay. All right. Is Darren Kawamoto here?
No. Get the off this property. Get the off this property. Get the off this property. Get the off the property.
Take a look at this guy when he comes out of the house.
Get the off the property.
He not only wanted the camera to go away, he wanted to attack anybody in sight.
We're leaving.
Off the property.
Hey, we're leaving. All right?
After chasing the crew off his parents' property, Kawamoto heads inside, but re-emerges with a weapon.
I'll slice your neck open. He showed his true colors, and a box cutter.
Granted, it's a box cutter and not a machete, but you still are coming to do harm.
I'm coming to look for every one of you.
These people who operate this way are almost animalistic. They have no ability to control maybe what's a very natural impulse.
What is that about? Get in that house. Get in that house. Get back there.
Police are called to the scene, and Kawamoto is arrested and charged with making felony criminal threats.
Get the off the property.
In Haifa, Israel, a long-standing feud between two Arab families ends in murder. But before the start of the accused killer's trial, a member of the victim's family leaps from the gallery to attack the defendant. As fists fly, other objects in the room are turned into dangerous weapons.
The family feud goes on inside the courtroom, and the constant hurling of chairs. This is going on for a long time.
With the victim's family on the offensive, relatives of the accused aren't the only ones under attack. Courtroom personnel keep the chaos at bay, using the furniture as protective shields.
They couldn't stop what was going on. It was so violent, it just spilled into the hallways.
There didn't seem to be a lot of security inside that courtroom. That doesn't sound to me to be the Israeli way.
Two family members are arrested, and the trial is relocated to a courtroom where the furniture is bolted to the floor. In Prague, former Prime Minister Miroslav Macek is appearing on a panel at a health conference. Seated to Macek's immediate right, Health Minister David Rath. Rath has recently made disparaging remarks about Macek's wife to a local newspaper.
You could see Rath is trying to figure out how he should respond to this. I mean, you want to maintain a certain sense of dignity and decorum.
Talk about anger management issues. This is the guy who had cojones, who I think perhaps was just a little bit crazy.
The pugilistic politicians are finally separated, and the conference continues.
There's something inconsistent with beating somebody up at a health conference. It's just bizarre. It's like the slap heard round the Balkans.
It's fight night in Australia. And the unbeaten Willie Kickett is squaring off against underdog Ahmed Elamar.
Very wobbly, and he takes another two. Who takes a temple shot? All this after just... Kickett is seeing stars. It is over. He can't get up, Andy. It is over. What a shot.
And obviously, they expected to see somebody get beat to hell. Problem is, it happened in the first round.
With Kickett flat on his back, rival groups of fans begin acting up in the stands.
We expect to see a good fight at a boxing match, of course, but I don't really expect to see a fight between fans and other fans.
Is someone going to pull these blokes up? Okay, scenes of horror here at the Central Coast League. I apologise for cutting this short.
Note to self, do not go to Australian boxing matches.
And when they saw their guy hit, and they got all that adrenaline going, they jumped into the ring. Who else are you going to beat up? The opponent's fans.
And something has got to be done about this.
Everybody who's watching the boxing match thinks they can actually fight all of a sudden, especially if they've been drinking. Everybody just starts attacking each other.
Absolutely ridiculous. A bit of order in this auditorium.
Security finally gets the rowdy crowd under control, and Elamar lifts the belt in victory.
This is an embarrassment to Australian boxing.
This is an embarrassment to Australian boxing, you think?
Coming up, hot tempers in Iceland. Plus, every parent's worst nightmare. Next, when Disorder in the Court returns.
Attention.
The school bus, where, let's face it, it is not uncommon to see unruly kids acting up. So school bus drivers often find themselves in a complicated role, equal parts cop, babysitter, and sometimes keeper of the peace. In Arizona, a school bus driver takes attendance for the ride home.
Well, if you're not on the list, you're fine.
But this student isn't on the list and refuses to get off the bus.
32, I need security on my bus.
The driver approaches the unauthorized passenger, and accusations soon fly.
Get out of my booth. Herbert, stop.
Can you imagine getting a phone call from your son or daughter saying that the bus driver just pushed me on the bus?
What happens next is elementary.
The driver could have done something different, but she was angry and things really got out of hand.
And then, to make matters worse, the bus driver's daughter is on this bus.
I think these people get burnt out, probably hate their jobs, do not get paid well, and feel abused, and in some cases can really lose it.
Police review the bus's surveillance tape, but ultimately clear the driver of assault charges. The disorderly 15-year-old, however, is sentenced to community service.
The adult always should have a responsibility. Having said that, nobody can make an adult's blood boil like an out-of-control teenager.
In San Francisco, former White House guru Karl Rove is participating in a debate about the 2008 presidential election.
The let them do anything they want crowd, we're all Democrats, with all due respect.
Debating Rove, former Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell.
I have to say I feel like Dorothy in the Land of Oz hearing you lecture about negative campaigns by others.
But when a well-dressed woman appears on stage with a set of handcuffs, the Republican rabble-rouser finds himself at a rare loss for words.
Excuse me?
Why is there no woman up here?
You know,
we need a California woman up here. I am one. I'm Janine Bonaparte. And I have to do a citizen's arrest. A citizen's arrest for treason.
The way he reacted was so bizarre.
Typical Karl Rove. Just wait. Get away. Wait for security to come.
Why is there no woman up here?
You know,
we need a California woman up here. I am one.
He gives her that little shrug off there, but would he have considered a chokehold if security hadn't moved in?
The woman was an anti-war activist who was trying to arrest Rove for committing treason.
She did what a lot of people wanted to do, but she put Karl Rove and those other panelists in jeopardy.
Authorities remove the woman from the premises, and the panel continues. But not before two more activists try to get their hands on Rove.
Citizen's arrest. A citizen's arrest for treason.
I'm supposed to be a lawyer, and I don't think I've ever heard of a citizen's arrest.
A citizen's arrest for treason.
It is called calling the cops. That's a citizen's arrest.
Carson, California. Mayor Jim Deere is presiding over a city council meeting. On the agenda, a motion to recall the election that put Mayor Deere in office.
Please administer the attendance, Madam Clerk.
I've covered city council meetings, and they're really boring. But sometimes emotions are raw.
Next speaker is Ms. DeWitt.
Vera DeWitt, a local community activist, takes the podium.
I'm here representing Carson citizens, which back in October took on a process to exercise our right to petition this council for a recall.
The mayor quickly engages the activist.
I'm not going to get into dialogue with you, Ms. DeWitt.
I'm not asking you to get into dialogue.
Please,
I'm asking you to quit.
lower your voice, please.
Quit interrupting.
Control yourself.
I would not want to meet this woman in a fair fight. This lady looks tough, and she's pissed off.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, lower your voice. Please, control yourself.
Sitting just behind Vera DeWitt is Jan Schaefer, the city's Public Works Commission chairwoman.
That's all.
Thank you. The next speaker is Marvin Clayton. Hey, stop that woman from leaving the room. She should be arrested.
The histrionics, the acting, the throwing yourself off the chair.
Vera DeWitt just struck a woman in the eye.
She hit her in the eye. You didn't think I mean we're close to her eye.
Hey,
What blows my mind is how there's the delayed reaction.
Hey,
It was just crazy.
We're going to call a doctor?
This woman should have known better than to walk by that woman in the front row and give her a tap. And what happened?
They charge you with assault. Assault with a deadly paper.
Vera DeWitt was charged with misdemeanor battery, and the recall motion failed. As for the victim, she no longer serves in Mayor Deere's administration.
This meeting's in recess.
October 2008, Iceland's economy became one of the first victims of the global economic meltdown. The tiny country's two major banks had lent billions to risky credit markets. And as those investments defaulted, the government froze dwindling bank assets. And thousands of angry depositors took to the streets in protest.
Their money suddenly was worth 50% less, and they didn't know what else to do except come out en masse.
A rowdy protester is arrested, and as night falls, a mob forms in front of the Reykjavik police station.
They actually try to beat down the doors of the police station to save this fellow protester.
Their anger is totally justified. Ripping down a portion of the Reykjavik police station is not going to make your currency worth more.
The Reykjavik riot squad arrives to disperse the unruly crowd. The protester in question has since been bailed out. Iceland's banks have not. Coming up, terror at the train station. Plus, school's out. And so is the riot squad. When Disorder in the Court continues. Casual strolls along the Seine, afternoons at the Louvre, a stolen kiss atop the Eiffel Tower. Paris is for lovers, usually. The Sorbonne is France's most renowned university, but the students are upset over the government's new labor laws. And after 3 days of relatively peaceful protests, the action escalates. Students begin hurling rocks and bottles at police. In an attempt to contain the disorder, the riot squad surrounds the university with a blockade. And the students try to fight their way out.
This isn't just any university. This is the most elite school in France. And take a look at what's happening here.
This really underscores why police have to get demonstrations under control early on. Police are clearly under attack here.
I saw fire, I saw violence, I saw something out of control, and it obviously got to a point where police had to use tear gas, and they have to step in to stop even greater violence from happening.
After a pitched battle in the streets, authorities finally bring the chaos under control. 11 students are arrested, and the new labor law is scrapped.
These are some serious issues, and the students are very involved. And obviously, this videotape shows exactly how involved they are.
Evening commuters crowd the train station in Berlin, the hub of one of the world's cleanest and most efficient rail systems.
This German train station really looks kind of like a mall.
But at one of the station's cafes, a dispute between a customer and a waiter has taken a violent turn.
There were commuters milling around, there were train-side cafes, and this man, clearly intoxicated, they say, got angry and decides to take the waiter hostage at knife point.
Within minutes, a police tactical unit arrives. For 2 tension-filled hours, they try to reason with the distraught patron.
The German riot police decided they couldn't get a clear shot at the guy without hitting the hostage. And so they decided not to shoot, which, is generally speaking a good thing to resolve a hostage situation.
Police maintained the control, although it took the time, but they finally had a point where they moved in to get that knife.
Their judgment is, we're not going to talk him out of it. This guy's irrational, so what we need to do, find that opening, go in, and take this guy out. They made the right call. No one was hurt.
The hostage taker is finally disarmed, and the evening commute resumes. The Taipei City Council is in session in Taiwan. As the mayor prepares to address the chamber, a member of the opposition attempts to unfurl a party flag on the podium. In response, a mayoral ally attempts to plant a flag of his own.
Obviously, emotions get jostled and become raw, but to go to this extent with shoes? Do you realize that a shoe can be a deadly weapon?
What struck me was like, who is this woman? She's throwing punches left and right.
She's actually fighting like a man. Talk about role reversals here. And then they all start attacking the one guy. It's like a 10-on-1.
The lawmaker who first deposited his shoe on the podium and then apparently realized it wasn't having the desired effect and then picked it back up and hurled it against the wall. I mean, what is this person thinking?
Taipei's council chaos eventually calms down, and the meeting is adjourned.
You see these parliaments in foreign countries and you think, is this what Nancy Pelosi might do?
In December 2008, George W. Bush visits Iraq for the final time during his presidency.
This is my 4th trip to Iraq, and you probably heard I'm heading into retirement.
During his tour, he holds a press conference with Iraqi Prime Minister Maliki. But one Iraqi reporter wants to take the president off the record.
His reaction time was fantastic. This was a man who moved incredibly fast. First one way, then the other way.
God forbid it was a more lethal weapon. It's fascinating when you look at this sort of act being perpetrated against an American president. We don't think that can happen.
If I was Bush's security and somebody threw a shoe at him, you would have seen some Joe Brat justice immediately flying over there.
The Secret Service moves in, and police arrest the 29-year-old Iraqi reporter. He defended his actions as a reasonable act of protest and said he'd do the same thing again if given the chance.
So what if the guy threw a shoe at me? It's a size 10 shoe that he threw.
It was such an audacious, symbolic act. I think it captured everybody's imagination.
It was the perfect ending to an imperfect presidency.
19 moments down, only one mind-boggling moment left. What will be number one? Find out next on Disorder in the Court.
Attention.
In tonight's number one moment, one of the world's oldest and holiest cities, once again caught in the crossfire of violence. Only this time, the aggressors aren't soldiers. They aren't terrorists. They are men of the cloth. In Jerusalem's Old City, a procession of Greek Orthodox monks is winding its way to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
You could look at this as one of the oldest courts in the world. This is where they believe the crucifixion of Christ took place.
Already inside the church, a rival group of Armenian monks has gathered. And they believe their right to worship takes precedence. And in this most holy of places,
You think of monks, you think of peace, you think of love, and boom.
You start seeing them throwing punches and, fists are flying everywhere.
an Armenian cleric delivers a crushing blow. But the Greek Orthodox faction stands its ground. Armed authorities arrive to suppress the violence, but they quickly find themselves outnumbered.
I mean, they were fighting everybody, the cops, themselves. I mean, they were just throwing punches all over the place.
You see the tapestries fall, you see the banners hit the ground. This is supposed to be a